welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to do a review of Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This is going to be inclusive of trigger warnings, including the chapters in which some of the triggers are present. There are some, I'll get into this in a little bit, but there are some that they're just kind of prevalent throughout the story, so if those themes bother you, then you're probably not going to like the book, and it's probably going to bother you. Also, I have Garrus here with me. He decided to join me today. Okay, so let me just open up my notes here. Okay, so for the trigger warnings, just overall, sexual assault through coercion and aggression, and there's also attempts made, abandonment, domestic abuse / violence. I wasn't exactly sure which category to put it in. I think they're pretty much the same thing. I'm not entirely sure though, so I apologize if I'm wrong about that. Racism, this is a historical book. Let me just see, well, historical fiction, technically, I think. Let me see, when does it start? Okay, so this book starts in 1952, and it ends in like 1970. So this takes place over a long period of time. So there are a few instances where the N-word is used, and they refer to black people as coloreds, and like they have colored town, and it's a completely separate place. So if that kind of thing bothers you, again, that is kind of throughout the book. If it bothers you, don't read this. At least that's my advice. Murder, bullying, again, I couldn't really exactly pinpoint where, because it's so prevalent throughout. Depression / suicidal ideation, and death. In chronological order, the trigger warnings, chapter by chapter, the ones that I found stood out to me the most as problematic. The first one is in chapter 9, which depicts domestic abuse / violence. Okay, the next one is chapter 21, which is for depression. But again, those ones were pretty hard to figure out for me. Next one is chapter 23 with attempted sexual assault. Chapter 26, attempted sexual assault by coercion. I don't think I actually specified the attempted assault in 23. Let me just double check. Okay, so I have it here, but I don't really know how to explain it. Maybe through coercion, a little bit of aggression there. It's kind of a mix of the two, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's hard, so, but regardless, it's there. Okay, and then after 26, there is 27, chapter 27, sexual assault through coercion again. There's a lot of manipulation, as far as this book goes. Garrus. Here I am talking about something serious, and he's just making his YouTube debut, I guess. I also have a blanket over here, so he's probably wanting to go under it. I think that's what it was. Okay. After 27, it looks like, yeah, the next one is chapter 30, for the trigger of depression and almost drowning. It's accidental. The depression and the almost drowning are not related, at least not that I remember. I could be missing things, but this is just to the best of my ability. Chapter 33, domestic violence, mention of cancer. Chapter 39, attempted / sexual assaults, which is aggressive. That is probably the worst of it. it's attempted, but the aggressor gets kind of far, but it's not successful. I don't even like using that word gross. The next one is chapter 41, which details memories of sexual assault. Just kind of mentioned, just kind of like a flashback or / trauma memory. Chapter 42, depression. Chapter 43, suicidal ideation, and for chapter 44 as well. So yeah, like I said, all of the racism and prejudice, bullying, depression, suicidal ideation, and death and abandonment as well. Sorry, they're kind of all sprinkled throughout the book, so it's hard to pinpoint exact chapters because otherwise I'd be listing every single chapter. So if any of those things are really triggering for you, stay away from this book. The only reason why I was able to read this was because I've kind of been on a mission for like basically my entire adult life. I kind of started it when I was younger, but I wasn't really like pushing for it as much, is to watch things or read things that kind of push my comfort zone as far as my triggers go, like not so far that it triggers a panic attack or flashbacks and that kind of thing, but just far enough that's like, okay, this makes me a little more uncomfortable than I'd like, and then I stop. And then I keep kind of pushing that envelope, and it's actually gotten me really far, kind of like an exposure therapy thing. And it's gotten me pretty good, or it's done pretty good for me. And when it came to some of the scenes of sexual assault, I had to stop for a few days. There were the two scenes that really bothered me the most. Let me see if I can figure out. I think I know which chapters. Like, I know it was the chapter 39, the aggressive attempt. That one really bothered me. I had to take a break for a few days. And then there was, I think it was in chapter 27. Yeah, so chapter 27 and chapter 39, those ones really bothered me. Even just like going back to find them, I hate it. No. I'm sorry, it's not funny. It's just I laugh to make things easier for me to talk about and deal with. So, but yeah, those two were the worst in my opinion. Of course, everyone's triggers are different, and I don't want to invalidate anyone who maybe has read this book or tried to and was triggered earlier and couldn't read it and, DNF'd it. And I actually almost DNF'd it because of those two scenes. When chapter 27 came up and I read it, I had a very, very hard time motivating myself to pick it back up. But I knew it's like, okay, I have heard amazing things about this book, and even though, no, I might not end up liking it, I still want to give it a chance, because if you saw my video about everything on my TBR list, I'll have that link down below. But I actually found this book at a thrift store, and I was super excited about it because I knew it was popular. I knew it had some triggers. I didn't remember exactly which ones, but it was at a thrift store for $6 when it's in Canadian, it was initially $35. So that was a steal. And I mean, I also figured that, like, even if I didn't like this book, then I could gift it to somebody who might. Or worst comes to worst, bring it back to the thrift store that I got it from, you know what I mean? So, because I didn't spend that much money on it. If I had spent the full $35, or I was about to, I probably wouldn't have picked it up, but, I knew that, like, it's supposed to be a really good story, and I'm a sucker for a really good story, even if there are some triggers within it. I get more motivated to try and get past those things. So I did almost DNF it. It was almost too much for me, but I'm proud of myself that I didn't. And again, if you did DNF it, that's perfectly fine. But I'm just at a place where I was able to read it and finish it. And that's a big accomplishment for me, especially with how graphic these scenes are. And that's the thing, too, that I want to mention before I get to my actual review, is that the sexual assault scenes specifically, and the domestic violence scenes, they are brief but pretty graphic. The author goes pretty in-depth as to like what happens and like the dialogue that kind of like leads up to it and like this kind of thing. So again, brief but pretty graphic. I think that's kind of prevalent throughout the whole book, is that the scenes that are more gruesome are brief but very, very vivid, very descriptive. So again, if that is something that triggers you, stay away from this book. But if you do not believe it would be a problem for you, then I do encourage you to read this book because it is wonderful. I gave this 5 stars because I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. The heartache that Kaya felt, it was very realistic and it really resonated with me, and I found I related to her a lot, and I think that was one of the things that kept me reading even when it was really bad like that. I felt like I was friends with her, if that makes sense. You know, when books do that, right? So I felt like I was friends with her, and I related to her a lot, like I said. And I cried tears both of joy and of sadness. I was so happy when things started going well, and so heartbroken when things did not. And I don't know, it's hard. Like, there are some twists, like, you don't really know. It's done really well in the fact that, like, you don't really know what is really going on. Like, you have all these clues and all these pieces of the puzzle, but they don't fit together. I mean, books are supposed to do that anyway, especially books like this, but this book does it exceptionally well. It is very well written, and normally, like, I tried reading Harry Potter. Now, don't come for me, but I could not stand the writing style. I couldn't. It drove me mad because it was very, like, written, like, it is what I call accent writing. I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but that's just the best wording that I know how to use. And this book does it too, but I think it's easier for me to kind of tolerate and understand, because not every single character does that. Like, Tate is one of the characters that doesn't talk like that, but because of where they live, you can kind of assume that everyone has that kind of an accent. Like, where do they live? They live in, I'm going to say Barkley Cove, but North Carolina. There it is, right in front of my face where I couldn't see it. So North Carolina, 1952 to 1970. You know, very southern accent, right? So it's assumed that everyone has that kind of an accent, but not everyone talks like that. And so she doesn't care. So the author doesn't write everybody like that. She did a really good job of giving every character their own voice. Like Kaya's father, he did talk like that. He didn't use proper words. And Kaya didn't use proper words at first either, and then that kind of gets better throughout the book, and it's the twist at the end blew me away. And I can't go into any more than that because otherwise I'm going to spoil it, but the twist was, it was so weird because like getting closer to the end of the book, I started, speculating, right? Like we do as readers, right? Like we're supposed to. So I started speculating. I had like 3 top ideas, and I was wrong. I was wrong on all of them. And it was so weird. Like, at first, as it was getting closer to the end, but it wasn't quite the end, I was just like, wait a minute, is that it? Like, is that where this book's gonna end? Because, like, if it did end there, I wasn't gonna be too happy about it. But then it kind of did a complete 180, and I was like, oh. Oh, so that's where it's ending. Okay. And I just sat there for a while, and I just, I don't know what to think of that. It was kind of funny. But overall, it was really, really good. I read a review on Instagram of where the Crawdads Sing, and the person giving the review, they only gave it 2 stars because like they didn't find it realistic, which I can understand. I can see where they're coming from. There are certain aspects of the story of like Kaya in particular that seemed like it wasn't realistic, or like the laws at the time. I had my own questions about that, but at the same time, I also don't know a whole lot about what laws in 1950 to 70 North Carolina were like. I kind of sloughed that off. I kind of figured it's like, well, I don't know much. I can't say if it was unrealistic or not. I think maybe some aspects were, but like I said, it's hard to say. So overall, though, I do feel like it was realistic. And it was just a really good, heartbreaking story. Like, if you want to cry, pick this up. I found that this is like a really good, it's a really good book to get your emotions going. So, I mean, if you've been feeling emotionally numb, this one. As long as it doesn't trigger you, as I said before. Overall, if you can handle it, if those things that I mentioned before do not trigger you, or at least you don't think they will, then I do encourage you to pick it up, because it is an experience, it is a journey, and I envisioned everything really well. And one thing that I really liked, let me just show you really quick, was that it has, I don't know how well this is going to pick up on my phone, but it has this little like map of everywhere, which there were some parts where I had a hard time understanding. I think that's just because like I don't know very much about like marsh / swamp areas. I don't really know that much about it. Because of that, it was a bit hard for me to picture, but the map did help. I had a hard time though kind of seeing like where the water was and where solid ground was, if that makes sense, like proper roads or sidewalks. And also I did want to mention, right off the bat in chapter 1, there is the Trigger of Abandonment. So it's nice though, because it really sets the stage for the tone of the rest of the book. So you're kind of like, right away what you're getting into. There are no surprises. And some people might find that kind of like annoying and predictable and whatever, but honestly, as someone who has gone through sexual assault and or abuse, I should say, technically, and is triggered by it, I like to know those things right up front. What am I getting into? So It was good. It was good. I'm glad that the author did that. And apparently, the author has written a few books, but I think it said that this was her first, Where the Crawdads Sing is her first novel. So she's written other books, but this is her first novel. That was surprising to me. I mean, I know she has, like, editors and, you know, the whole, like, traditional publishing company and that kind of thing to help her, but still, it's impressive. It is really impressive. And if I see any more novels by her, I'll definitely be checking to see if there are any triggers, or I'll ask my husband too, because that was another thing. I'm sorry. I keep going on and on about it. I've been recording for so long now. But that was the other thing. Is that I had a really hard time finding trigger warnings for this book. So what I ended up doing is I went to, like, this website. It was like I don't remember what it's called, but it was kind of like a review of, like, the whole book, like, broken down into each chapter. It was, like, for, like, study purposes or something. Which, I mean, I thought was pretty cool, and I had, like, the contents of the chapter, and then, like, they kind of summarize it on, like, the other side. It was, like, this chart. And so I was trying to just, like, skim through and find which chapters were triggering and whatever, and so I have, like, a little sticky note in the front here telling me, which chapters to be wary of. But I ended up getting some spoilers because of it. And then after I talked to my husband, he was like, next time ask me to do it. And I just said, okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Why wouldn't I? So if you have someone in your life that you can trust with that kind of thing, I highly recommend that if you need to look more into it yourself, ask them to look it up for you. Or you can leave a comment and about a specific trigger, and I can go back through and see if that's there or how severe that trigger is. So, anyways, that is where I'm going to end it today. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe, or consider it at least, if you did like it, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.